Hey folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. And if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com and I'll try to get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. Today I have Jose from Tequila Partida joining me. We're going to learn a lot about tequila, a lot about the distillation and farming practices that kind of go into it. And honestly, I've been itching to get into this particular segment for a while. And so whenever they reached out and said, hey, we would love to hop on for an episode, I couldn't do anything besides say absolutely win. So hope you guys enjoy today's episode. All right. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you happen to be consuming this, I have Jose joining me from Tequila Partida, or is it Partida Tequila? Which way? I got to get that right in the right order. It's Tequila Partida. I'm reading it on your name. Anyways, I have Jose joining me. Jose, if you would just kind of give me, 90 seconds about who you are and what it is that you do.
Thank you, John, for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jose Valdez, and my role in Tequila Partida is to be the guardian of the quality and consistency of Tequila Partida. The title is called Maestro Tequilero, which is basically the person that oversee every single step of the production of the tequila from the agave fields until the product is finished in the bottle.
Awesome, and I love that description, the guardian of quality. I don't know that I've heard anyone describe that, the kind of role that you do in that way. And honestly, more people should. It's a little bit more romantic and beautiful. So tell me a little bit, Jose, about how you got to where you are. How did you get to being in the role that you're currently in right now?
Well, that started in 2005, uh, almost 20 years ago. I study industrial engineer because I love maths, numbers, and I like to be an analytic person with numbers and statistics and problem solving, basically. And I was working in the manufacturing electronic industry for a few years, but I was not happy. And I was not happy because I want to work with a consume product. And initially I want a beer because I'm a beer consumer. And but then I realized that tequila is huge because beer can be done anywhere in the world, but tequila can be done only in certain territory, that is protected. And Jalisco is the capital of the tequila, and tequila is not only a town, it's a volcano, but also is the most popular alcoholic beverage in the world that related to the Mexican. So I started looking for opportunity in that industry, and in those years, uh, I was lucky to meet a group of investors led by one American investor. His name is Gary Shasby, and he came to Mexico, and somebody introduced me with him. He was looking for an engineer to help him to build a new tequila brand that compete with Patron and Don Julio, because in those years the only two premium tequilas really well known in those years were those two brands. But he wanted to do something more authentic, more real, more natural, and, and that's how I get involved in the Tequila Partida history.
So you mentioned in there that the sort of the onset of the brand was wanting to be, more authentic and more real than maybe some of the other things that were in the marketplace at that point in time. Can you explain a little bit to me what that means? Because I know you guys also have the kind of a piece on your label that talks about additive free, which is a little confusing for anybody who comes from Bourbon, it's confusing, right? Because we don't do additives. But any other whiskey in the world, maybe it makes more sense. But kind of explain how that works within tequila.
Yes, we realized that these brands available in the market in those years were a lot of marketing, and the product, it was decent, but but it can be better. It can be more, you know, more natural. And we realized that the Mexico law to produce tequila allows to add up to 1% of the volume in what we call additives. And
Mhm.
additives is basically sweetener, coloring, and, and and flavoring, either artificial or natural, such as high fructose, glycerin, caramel color, essence of anything. And we said, well, it's allowed, but that doesn't mean that is what we are looking, what we want to create. And that was the very first day, the DNA of Tequila Partida, to make a tequila that don't go and follow exactly what that the law established. No, we create our own standards.
So that makes a lot of sense, because even at 1%, which most people would probably look at the idea, but like, oh, it's only 1%. How much of an impact can it have? But I guess you could do that testing on your own. You could put some black food coloring in a glass of water and only put 1% in it and see what kind of a change it makes, and so you can uh, push in on your marketing a little bit. You can change the flavor a little bit. You can pull some other levers, but they're not quite as true to the central product. So, if you would, just so we can get a better of how that 99% could impact it, can you give me just kind of a brief overview on, like, what is the process to make tequila? Because there's going to be a lot of folks that that listen to this that are going to have their background experiences. Tequila is either going to be in a margarita, or they're doing shots at the bar of Jose when they were 21 years old at a on a Friday night or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tequila. It's a beverage that is produced with agave, and there are many types of agave, more than 200 different varieties, but only one type of agave is used for tequila, and it's the Blue Tequilana Weber. So tequila is made with the Blue Tequilana Weber, uh, and for the 100% agave tequila. There are also the just tequila, not 100%, and is known as mixto. So mixto means that can be added uh, 14 up to 49% of other sugars, such as high fructose, sugar cane, or other types of sugar. But tequila, if we do as partida, is 100% agave. That means that the only ingredients is agave and water, and yeah, that's it. And that's all you need. And the process is the sugar that contains the plant, the agave plant, that takes between 6 to 9 years. Used to be more than 10 years, but nowadays the agave reach maturity around 5 to 7 years. That's what we have seen in the last few years. And when the plant is ready and reach maturity, then is the moment to harvest, to cut the agave plant from the soil, to extract from the soil with the jimador, is the person that makes this process with a device called coa. And once the plant is harvested, the next step is to cook, because uh, the sugar, the fructose and glucose are together in a change, and the heat is gonna break that change and make the simple sugar, so it can be eaten by either us as an agave nectar, or
Mhm.
by the yeast to make the ethylic alcohol. So basically, it's cooking the agave, extract that sugar, which is the either with the tahona or the rolling mill, add water to extract that sugar that the fiber inside the plant has. And then once that liquid is extracted, it's called mosto, which is basically cook agave juices. start the fermentation in that process, which is the third step. No, it's
Mhm.
harvesting, cooking, milling, fermentation, and fermentation basically is the yeast that is a natural organism alive that we cannot see but eat the sugar, the simple sugar, and create the ethylic alcohol. And that's what any alcoholic beverage is made with sugar that is fermented. But the difference is that this is a spirit, means that is the last step is the distillation process, and the traditional process is with the pot still or alembics. That's the way we do it in a small batches, and basically it's a separation of the water and the alcohol, and with a different boiling point, and yes, evaporation of the alcohol, and then condensation, extract the alcohol, and in order to call tequila has to be distilled twice.
Okay, so there's some things I wanted to kind of ask about now. If we think about agave plants, right? Most alcohols that are made or distilled are made from plants that take anywhere from 3 to 6 to maybe 9 months to grow, depending upon what kind of a grain or what kind of a sugar producer you're going to utilize. But agave plants, you said we're looking at 5 to 7 years of maturity. That feels like, at least from your position, you have to have a very solid strategy on where you're going to source these from, because if you plant today, you can't harvest this for 5 years at the earliest potential, and it could be much longer than that. So it feels like it would be really hard to manage kind of the dips and peaks in a spirits marketplace with a product that you have to grow for 5 or 7 years.
Right, right.
So how do you manage? Like, how do you manage that within? Do you guys work with growers, or do you find people who bring you the plants when they're already at maturity? Like, how does that happen?
That's a very important question because there's no tequileros without agaveros, right? So we need the farmers, and either you are integrated, that means that you cultivate the agave and produce your own using your own agave. But the industry normally use their own agave, but also other sources of agave because, as you pointed out, compared to bourbon, that use wheat, rye, no, or sugar cane for the rum, or it takes 3 to 7 months, and in the waits is 5 to 7 years. You need to have a land, no, first of all. So you have to have a lot of land, and it's a limitation there. So what we do in Tequila Partida, we identify that there are three business in the tequila industry. One is the farm, which is the agaves cultivation. Second is the transformation and production, and the third one is the distribution, no? The marketing and sale. So we focus in the second and in the third. In the first one, we let the expert to do their jobs, and what we do is to partner with the local brokers and a small producer in the region of Tequila Valley. Tequila Valley is the original place where the tequila was invented or was created. Uh, Almost, well, between 250 years to 400 years. There is a big no there is a lot of information and sources about the origin of the tequila, but definitely it's in the area of the Tequila Valley, no? Where Tequila Town is, where Amatitan is, where Magdalena and Arenal are the three municipalities that are the three towns. That is where, and we are established in the Tequila Town, is where the distillery is, and therefore we want to be a good representative of a local producer, no, producing as what we call the single malt of tequila, meaning we use only one distillery, sources from the same valley, and aging in the same and bottling in the same distillery, which is not all the producers do
Hmm.
that. No, so and this is crucial because qualities from agave and distilleries are different in each one, and in order to avoid any, uh, let's say, yeah, to avoid any variable, to control this variable, we decided to work with local producer that cultivate agave in the region and produce in the same distillery.
So you guys have, you focused on the quality from the time that the plant is harvested until the final moment that it goes into the bottle and it goes um to the end user, the consumer. Have you noticed, you guys entered the marketplace with an intent to sort of mature what high quality tequila would taste like, right? Because you're focusing on only what you can distill, not what you can add to it. Have you seen a change in the tequila marketplace? Maybe a reaction to that, or a reaction to changing palates, or a reaction to the, anything, a change in the marketplace since you've sort of entered into this particular line of work?
Yeah, I have been witness of many changes in the industry. First of all, the agave used to maturate 10 years instead of nowadays 5 to 7 years. No, it was bigger plants. It was with more bricks or more sugar inside.
Mhm.
Now we see that due to many factors that I cannot explain you exactly which one is the biggest one, but the domestication of the plant, no, to use the plant and to produce millions and millions of plants every time. So genetic speaking, the plant is weaker. The global warming, no, is changing everything. The agriculture is changing. The products that is used in the cultivation of the agave, such as pesticides, herbicides, kill, and it's yeah, it's affecting everything. Other change that I have seen in the industry, not only in the agave, is that the consumers in the U.S. is nowadays the market number one in the world. The biggest consumer of tequila in the world is USA in tequila, but that was not true like
Mhm.
10 years ago. It was Mexico. It was Mexico was the number one, and now I identified that the knowledge, the education in agave in U.S. Consumers is high. I see people that they know more than some producer, even a small producer. Because why? Because they visit multiple distilleries. There are influencers. They make podcasts. And they do the physical research, and they have a ton of uh, technical also information and also experimenting tastings. So they're becoming a super knowledgeable expert in tasting. And what I see the trend is that people is discovering the how amazing is the tequila without artificial flavoring, traditional producer process, no consistency, and not only in the taste, but the next day as well, no, with avoiding the hangover and the effects. Not only the next day. Sometimes if you drink a adulterated tequila or a tequila that is very industrial with high methanol, so you're gonna have a headache in the same within a few hours, no.
Mhm.
And when you taste this amazing artisanal tequila that has been doing for 20 years the same recipe, keeping the taking care of the small details of quality. At the end, the taste is different, and the experience during and after is different. That's what I see in the market.
Yeah, and so a more intentional approach to taste sounds, fantastic. That's what everybody wants, a better connection to the things that they're consuming. So if we want to talk about taste a little bit, let's start at the beginning and maybe work our way through a few steps and see how those things kind of work. Is there anything unique in Partida's agave selection, that's, something that you guys do that's unique that might, help generate better flavor profiles that you're looking for?
Yeah, yeah. What I have seen that is what at least Yeah, what is very different to other distilleries is the freshness of our agaves.
Hmm.
And when I say freshness, is that once we pass five crucial quality controls in the agave, in the selection of the agave, we have 24 hours to process that agave. That's
Hmm.
the policy because we want to capture the natural essence and flavor of the agave. And we have discovered that after 24 hours, if the agave is not cooked, then it's gonna dry out, and the flavor is not gonna be the same.
Okay, so once it's harvested, the plant then goes into a process of, does it immediately go into like a process of mashing it down to be able to make liquid, or is it effectively smoked, fired, heated, cooked, whatever you want to call it, before that particular process happens? And is there anything unique that you guys are doing that kind of impacts flavor in that realm?
Yes, John, there is five things that we put a lot of effort in when we select and harvest the agave. The first one is, I mentioned already, has to be agave from the region. The second one, and most important, uh, is very logical. This is the plant has to be ready.
Hmm.
And how can we tell that the plant is ready? Well, the plant produce the flower. Not all the plants, but some of them produce the flower, and that is a sign that we say, okay, this plant is reaching maturity. And that flower we call the quiote. No, when you see plants in the agave fields and you see these yeah this flower, we say, okay, that's a sign that the plant is ready. But it's not the only one. The farmers are expert, and the jimadores, they walk through the agave field and say, okay, this plant is changing the color, the size, the leaves are moving like differently. They notice that the plant is ready. And when the plant is ready, that's the second thing that is reaching maturity. The plant is ready when it's reaching maturity. Uh, the third one is harvesting as close as possible. That means that we focus on the center of the plant. We call pineapple, no, because looks
Hmm.
like a pineapple. One is shaved, uh, and we have the policy that no longer than 2 centimeters, 1 inch, no, all the leaves, no longer than that. So we want the plants white, completely white, like jicamas, we say to the brokers, and also the quality that we ask is Supremo. They know when we mention the word Supremo, that means that we want plants that reach maturity and harvest very close, very white. And the next is the sugar content. We have to have at least 24% of sugar, and that's what we call ART, which is total reductible sugar. And and yeah, the last one is the freshness. No, has to be delivered to the distillery and start cooking within 24 hours.
Okay, so the and I'm trying to walk myself through the process of making tequila. So, whenever they begin cooking, is there water added to them, or is it just a heat application?
It's just the steam, and the steam convert when it's in contact with the plant, is gonna generate a liquid, and that's the way we wash the plant that is dirty because it's come from the
Hmm.
field, no, that has all this soil and all these ants and animals or whatever they have. The first 3 hours of steam generates what we call the bitter honeys. It sounds like weird, but it's bitter honeys, and that's the way we clean the agave in the oven. We discard those liquid, and then we keep cooking, and we're gonna generate the real honeys, no, what we call the sweet honeys, no. The sweet honeys is actually the liquid that we're gonna blend with the juice that is gonna be extracted from the plant.
So, and then we'll likely step at some point in time into a fermentation process where you're combining the extract from the agave plant, some yeast of some type, and I would assume water goes in at this particular point for distillation. In Kentucky and in bourbon specifically makes a big deal out of water. What is the water situation like whenever you guys are making tequila?
That's a very important question, John, because water change the flavor of any spirit. And anything like in soda, no? Like the soda or beer that is made in a certain region or soda that is made in different state, the flavor is basically different because of the water. And this is true in the tequila. The water, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the second element, the second and only element that is used in the tequila, agave water. And we use, and our water is is very unique. Why is very unique? Because our water comes from a well that is around 150 meters deep that we extract, and is what we call volcanic water. It's volcanic because we're in the town of Tequila, and it's a dorm volcano, and the water is natural filtrator in the the raining, and then this all the soil that goes down, and then that extraction. And that water we use it, we extract it, and we use it in the after the cooking of the plant. The second step of in the distillery is the milling process. So each plant is shredded, it's converted into fiber so it can be opened, and we add in the milling process the water from the well, from that well, the spring water or volcanic water. And that's very important because it's going to help us to separate, to extract the sugar, the cooked sugar of the agave, and also it's going to ferment it. So it's going to
Mm-hmm.
generate flavors. And yeah, we that's the point. We add the water before the fermentation, and depends the bricks, the concentration of sugar we want. We add less or more water.
So when it goes into the fermentation process, there's a couple things, and fermentation is somewhat universal, whether we're talking about beer or other spirits or wine or whatever. But there's some yeast product, there's some water product, and there's time, right? And so the things that you can kind of pull levers on, you've already taken care of your liquid as it comes up into fermentation process. Um, is there anything that you guys do around yeast or around fermentation times or fermentation temperatures that you think is key to the flavor creation for what you guys do?
Yes, that's a very important topic in the fermentation because fermentation is the generator of flavor of the tequila. Distillation is just to selection of the flavor, but the step in the production that is going to create or generate the aromas is fermentation. So it's crucial for any profile of tequila, the fermentation. And in our case, we don't use yeast from the bread or from champagne or from beer yeast that is common to use and to buy this type of yeast is easier, I would say. It's more standardized,
Mhm.
but we like to complicate our life. And we in a, like many years ago, but with a little of science. Why I say that? Because if you do it like 300 years ago, it's just to let the tank ferment it alone. Just alone, wait 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever it takes, depends on the weather. But in our case, we do that in the first tank. But then we separate a few, like 10% of that, and we separate it in a smaller tank and add air to reproduce the yeast and a source of nitrogen. No? And with the nitrogen and the air, that is going to reproduce the population of the yeast, the quantity of yeast. So
Mhm.
basically, we standardize to a certain level that we want this quantity of yeast to last the next batch, the next tank, in 3 days at least, but no longer than 5 days. So why is that? Why we decided to do it between 3 days and 5 days? Because before 3 days, that is common in the industry to accelerate the fermentation because time is money, and the faster, the more efficient, but not necessarily the best in profile. So after 3 days, we start noticing aromas, and this is very practical. No, you can walk through the fermentation tanks in the first 3 days. You're gonna smell and pick up some type of aromas, but then after 3 days, uh, it depends. Sometimes it's 2.5 days. It depends, no? But normally 3 days, you're gonna pick up different aromas, like more, I would say more tropical fruits.
Mm-hmm.
In the first part, we notice like citrics, a lot of citrics, and a lot of yeah. The yeast is very strong. The flavor, the alcohol, the CO2. But when it's very pleasant, is after the 3 days. That is still alive, the yeast, eating the, is warm. The fermentation is this kind of videos that you see the fermentation in the peak. That's the best moment that the, and then start declining of until 5 days. And we want, as soon as finish in 5 days, to distill that mosto. We don't like the second this fermentation process, which is called the malolactic, or yeah, is more lactic, more milky, if you will. More, we pick up some of the milky aromas in between 3 to 5 days, but such as butter, no, like cheese. But after 5, 6, 7 days, it becomes very a second fermentation that you see like a white layer, and this is very technical, but it's the flavor of that tequila to us is not what we like. What we like is to be the protagonist, the fresh agave. No, that's the conception of Tequila Partida, and obviously to make sweet and natural and interesting tasting. But we don't like the super butter and super milky tequilas.
So okay, so we've gotten to the yeast at this point, and this is maybe you have an answer. This maybe you don't, and I know yeast has a pretty significant habit of evolving relatively quickly, right? From one strain to the next, they get these minor evolutions that could potentially impact ultimately the flavor profile. So do you guys maintain some effectively some previous fermentation so you can kind of go back to it and say, okay, the yeast is evolving in a direction that we don't want to go, or have you not experienced that?
No, we don't. Every production of Tequila Partida, we use the yeast that is in the environment and is in
Mm-hmm.
the agave in that specific batch. What we can do only is to control the time of
Yep.
fermentation. But yeah, it's gonna be different every batch. That is true. It's gonna. We try to keep consistency, obviously, in the time of fermentation, but yeah, one batch can be different because many factors, not only the fermentation. Maybe the agave was excellent, no, in
Mm-hmm.
certain region, and or the cooking. If we overcook in that production is, and if we burn some agave, then the flavor is not going to be the same. So we control as much as we can in a natural way.
Yep. And so we've gotten up to the distillation process, and most of the folks that listen to this or watch this will understand that particular process, right? Because distillation is distillation. You do use an alembic still, which is something that doesn't happen in bourbon unless you're talking about small craft producers. But you do see it in a lot of other, some other European spirits and some brandies and whatnot. Do you think that the alembic still has any impact on the final flavor that kind of comes out the other side of it? And then maybe a follow-up question to that is it's going to vary. How do you try to maintain consistency in batches from one to the next?
Yes, distillation, the alembic system is complete. Is gonna give a different profile, completely different than a distillation column, for instance. No? A pot still is a separation that is not as an intense and faster than the distillation column. So what we do in Tequila Partida is to to separate the first product that is distilled and the second product that is distilled. The and that varies every batch. How can we tell how many liters we separate? It depends on the methanols. So we do send a sample to the lab and we say, okay, the concentration of methanol and superior alcohol. And based on that, we decided if we got more or less liters of the heads and tails, what we call heads and tails, which is the, yeah, let's say the not healthy alcohol, no, the more volatile and more dangerous alcohol for consumption, for human consumption.
Okay, so we're getting to the point to where we decide whether this is going to be an unaged product that goes into a bottle, or is this going to be something that you're going to stick in barrels for aging. How do you know kind of which way you want to go, or are you running the entire distillation run knowing this is going to be unaged product, or this next one is going to be aged product?
Well, our focus is quality to make always the very best blanco, as we call the base of the rest of the tequila. We have 8 different SKUs, but only one is blanco, right? But the blanco, you need the blanco to make the reposado, the añejo, the extra añejo, the roble fino, which is double cask. So we know that if we do a very good quality blanco, then we have a good base to make a good reposado. So sometimes we have a clear vision that this batch is going to be everything for blanco, but sometimes we don't, and sometimes and in either way, in either case, we have to do our best to make the highest standard quality, because I truly believe that although the aging might hide some mistakes or some errors in the blanco, which is true, no, because you have another variable, which is the aging, the flavor, and that's why Maestros Tequileros we prefer the blanco, because that doesn't hide anything, and you don't have another distraction, if you will, no, the aging. So answering your question, we focus all the time to make the highest quality. Either is for reposado, añejo, extra añejo is the basis. It has to be good to either drink it neat or to make a aging product.
So and that's a pretty common sentiment here in the States as well. You can put something that's okay in a barrel and it'll come out being slightly better, right? But you can't take something that's markedly bad and make it great by putting it in a barrel. But so you do age some product inside barrels. Explain that a little bit for me, because in Kentucky we understand barrel aging in a bourbon concept, and folks that are fans of Scotch or wine, they understand those, and they're all slightly different from each other. So, kind of give me an idea of what aging looks like in a tequila distillery.
Well, aging by law, it can be oak or encino, which is another type of wood, and has to rest the tequila. And for the case of reposado, there is no limit in the container. It can be a big container, like massive. The smaller the container, the more intense the aging and highest quality. So in Tequila Partida, we age in 200 liters ex bourbon barrels, white American oak, medium toast. And instead of 2 months, which is the minimum by law, we go between 6 months up to a year. And, and in the case of añejo, which is another category, by law is 1 year. We go 18 months up to 2 years. And in the case of extra añejo, by law is 3 years. We go at least 4 years. So tequila use either new barrel, no, with no bourbon, no whiskey, no wine, or used barrel. In our case, in Tequila Partida, all the barrels that we source, we purchase directly from the bourbon industry. And the reason is to avoid any bad quality use of the barrel, or empty barrel to avoid that the barrel has been empty many times. So we make sure that every purchase of barrel from the bourbon are empty within 10 days and with a certificate, written certificate. So that means that when we receive, and Kentucky and Tennessee is not far from Jalisco. It's like two days driving. So
Mhm.
we receive the barrels very fresh, and we put the tequila right away. And we use those barrels between 3 years to 4 years. And we once we extract the flavor that we want, we don't retoast the barrel. We don't, the staves are in very good condition, but for quality of tequila partida and the profile, because we don't want to add any flavoring, caramel color or anything. We want to do it in a natural way. The color that you see in the bottles is the color that comes from the ex bourbon barrel.
So okay, so you've mentioned this a couple times, but we probably do need to at least talk a little bit about the añejo project that you guys have going on. I believe there's some single barrel añejo that's going on. Kind of give me the what made this decide to be a thing, and what are you hoping to achieve with these?
Well, it's becoming my 20th anniversary, or the 20th anniversary of Tequila Partida next year. And in celebration of that, we decided to make a single barrel of añejo. In the past, we did a single barrel with the reposado, which is more common. But añejo is more complex because it's more aging time. And basically, a single barrel is from a batch of an X amount of barrel, let's say 100 barrels, that is one production. Uh, I select a few of them. The one that I believe has a very unique characteristic, not the standard, and it's a very intense job because I have to do open barrels as permission to the Mexican authority, the CRT, and once they allow us to break the seals and to open and sample different barrels, then we measure the color, taste each barrel at 55% alcohol, then at 40% alcohol, and do it several times with my team, no, with the panel tasting, either in the distillery in Tequila or in our offices in Guadalajara. And I select a few of them, no,
Mhm.
like 20 barrels out of 100 that are the best barrels, no. And what we do is, okay, we will let the consumers to have the opportunity to select out of these 20 barrels. The first stage was with 10 barrels. So right now we have 10 barrels that our sales team in the US has this sample kit with 10 different uh, samples, and go with either on trade and off trade and say, hey, do you want to buy a whole barrel for you? It's going to be customized. It's a new packaging. It's customized packaging of añejo with a label that handwritten the name of the account. No, it can be a liquor store or a restaurant or whatever is the consumer. And we obtain around 45 to 50 cases out of an añejo barrel because the angel share is around 15% in 2 years. No, our añejo is almost 2 years. In December, is gonna get 2 years, and that's basically what we do in the single barrel. So if you want to have a unique, limited batch, which is this quantity around 270 bottles
Mhm.
or 45 cases, physical cases, then you select. That is one option. The other option is you come to the distillery and I have other barrels open, pre-open, so you can taste from those barrels, which is different than the press selection that I did. And you're gonna decide. You're gonna be you're gonna do my job, no, basically, which is
Mhm.
come taste different barrels and tell me which one you like. And people have come to the distillery and they bring expert taster, like an advisor
Mhm.
that come and say, "What do you think?" And it's a very interesting and a unique experience.
It definitely sounds like it, and that that tickles the interest of a lot of folks that are interested in the single barrel concept, the ability to get something that's not quite exactly like what's on the shelf day to day. And I'm one of those people. I've been on some barrel selections before, and a lot of folks will like, I want what this brand tastes like, but if you were to turn it up to 11, or kind of exemplify that brand. And I'm usually the guy that's on the other side saying, hey, where's the weird barrel, the one that's unique, that it doesn't, it's off profile, because I want to see those different things that are happening, um, especially inside barrel aged products. But um, I'm relatively familiar with what happens in the barrel here in Kentucky. But what happens inside the barrel where you're aging your tequila, right? Because I've got to imagine the climate's different, the elevation's different, everything's different. So you already said there's 15% loss over 2 years, which feels relatively normal. But um, how much interchange does it get in the barrel as far as flavor and color change? Because we're always told here in Kentucky it's the in and the out. So whenever it gets cold and it gets hot, and it gets cold and it gets hot, is that as big a deal? And where you're aging tequila?
Well, to me, is I'm still learning a lot in tasting different barrels, because
Mm-hmm.
although we purchased the same batch of barrel from the bourbon industry 2 years ago, because for this single barrel is one pass, is the first pass we're putting the tequila. And
Mm-hmm.
I was witness that these first batch were acquired in a very difficult time. 2 years ago, it was after COVID, it was the shortage of barrel, because it was the peak of bourbon. The industry was huge, and it was very difficult to get those barrels. And once we get those barrels, I said all the barrels are equal, but they are not. And looks equal outside, but when we put the tequila, that is the same batch of tequila, is the same tank, is the same agaves that we use for, but act differently in the barrel in 2 years. How is that? I don't know. I guess the wood is different, act different, interact with the temperature, and also the position of the barrel is close to the roof, is warmer. So we don't have in our aging room like temperature and humidity control,
Mm-hmm.
no? And yeah, it's very intense, the heat in Tequila Town compared to the highlands, to the Los Altos. It's especially in the summer, no, before the raining season, which is May, is very hot. It's very hot and very dry. So if this batch passed already 2 years, so they pass already two summers, and that means that they have absorbed a lot. I don't have a right answer to give you. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning that each barrel, and not necessarily the highest in the highest location, is the one that is more intense. Sometimes at the bottom, that barrel is even better. But better to whom? Better to
Mm-hmm.
me, to my personal palate, or that's why it's very interesting to have a session with a group of people. Say, hey, what are we looking here? Are we looking for our consumer to be a very unique, intense flavor, or we want balance, or we want sweet, or what kind of aromas and flavors we are pursuing in this single barrel? And I think it's part of the experience.
Yeah, and and maybe kind of stepping backwards, and it's also parallel to what you were talking about. A lot of the rest of the product that you guys make are what we would call blended. They're batched. They're you put a series of barrels together to kind of put out this particular offering. How do you guys go about generating a batch and identifying these barrels should go together, or do you just say these are the ones that are at maturity and these are what we're going to blend together and we'll see what it tastes like when it comes out the other side?
That's a very good question, and that was part of my methodology on how I choose these barrels. And what I did was to take let's say for a batch of 100 barrels, I select 20 random,
Hmm.
and then make a blend of those 20 to say how is going to be the standard of this batch. It's going to be, this is the standard, this is the reference. So if now I'm going to taste those 20 individually to see how they are far from the average, from the, yeah, from the standard, if you will. and I select those that are that have highest distance from the standard, that are more different.
Hmm. So, and we're running up on time, and I'm going to ask maybe one last question. This is more for you. You started off in working in process management, right? Being able to understand how things flow from um, a process, but you wanted to make a move, and you got into consumer products. You were hoping to get into beer, and then eventually you jumped into tequila. Um, what for you, right? Because I don't. It doesn't sound like, or at least not from the initial statement, it doesn't sound like you came in as a tequila aficionado or fan or whatever. Um, what is your relationship to tequila prior to working on this job? Were you a fan of it, or was it just a beverage that existed in the market?
That's a very good question. You are absolutely right, John. I was not in the, I will say my family was not in the tequila or in the agave industry prior to I joined Partida. And my experience, my personal experience with tequila started when I was very young from my father. My father used to drink only once a week tequila
Mhm.
uh, on Sunday after going to mass and have a barbecue, a family barbecue, and he put Mexican music like all the environment to drink one caballito in 1 hour, no, just sipping, as we said, kisses, no, just kisses of this reposado Don Julio that he really enjoyed. And that bottle lasts for, let's say, a month because he only drink on Sunday one or maybe two caballitos in the
Mhm.
whole afternoon. And then I realized that that was something special. No? That liquid that my dad is taking every Sunday, religious, drinking, sipping, and enjoying. I said, what is that? So I learned that obviously it's something that people should respect. And that's my whole mindset. The tequila is if you are doing if you're putting all this effort, and not only my effort, the nature effort to create, to generate this plant, the most respectful way to do it is drink clean properly, and to educate others to appreciate the beverage and drink it. That's where my passion started.
Mhm.
Then I become engineer in Jalisco with my friends, start discovering the tequila itself. Not all the time drinking neat, or sometimes with Coke and a lot of tequila, like any young guy in college, I will say. But then I start doing more like a research, like let's go to the distillery, let me see how this process is made, what is the difference between this process and this other process, why is so different, why I feel so bad the next day with this brand and with this other brand. Then I
Mhm.
made my yeah, my decisions to make Tequila Partida.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Jose. And it's always good whenever you do find a person that they've got a different kind of connection other than it is just a product to the thing they're trying to make. You can sense passion, you can sense artistry, and all of those wonderful things that kind of comes into the spirits realm. And we're right at the end of our time. I want to say thank you so much for educating me on tequila and specifically on Tequila Partida and what you guys are doing. You know, I love the story. I feel like I could probably talk for at least another 45 minutes, but time is our enemy today. So thank you for giving me a little bit of your time today. It's the thing that you can never make more of, and I'm always appreciative.
Thank you, John, for the invitation. Thank you for letting me share what I have done in my 20 years of professional life in Tequila Partida, which I consider my babies, and also to let listen this to your audience.
Thanks for tuning into this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you're consuming this on. Leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using Embellish Pod, and you can give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, contact details, and more. Thanks for stopping by.